We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. This is Robert Phoenix. It is Monday, the 18th of February, and February is, in fact, 2013 is ripping by us. We'll be 2 months into 2013 in a few short weeks. And it's been an interesting year, no doubt. The last week was action-packed. We had the resignation of the Pope, we had the Dorner affair, and we also had meteors streaking through the sky all across the planet, not just Russia and Cuba as was reported, but other places as well, including, but not exclusively, to the San Francisco Bay Area, where there was another fireball that had raced across the sky. I had Richard Mystical Sun on a few months back, and he was actually witness and got some footage of a similar fireball that took place that also ran across the sky in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm not sure if the two were in the same location, but this is two fireballs literally within the last 6 months. And the same night, they had seen something in Louisiana as well. So we are living in the time of comets, meteors, fireballs, which, by the way, are some signifier of prophecy. And you can read about it through the Bible. You can read about it through Nostradamus. The comet or the fireball is a harbinger of things to come, and not always a positive one, by the way. But today's show, we are going to be focusing on the positive. And hopefully here in the next minute or two, we'll have Kenji Wiliiams, the creative director and visionary of Gaia, which is a multimedia performance. It's along the lines of a Cirque du Soleil traveling around the country. I've known Kenji for a few years now. I got to know him back in the 90s when we were in the rave scene, sort of the post-rave scene together in San Francisco. And he was I would say Kenji would have qualified as a struggling artist. But it didn't take him too long to get beyond the struggling point. I think the key to his life was moving to New York City. And we're going to talk about that move for him and what it meant for him and how it changed his life, going from one staging area and to another. Okay, so I just got to connect from him. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of go off script here a little bit, and I'm going to dial them in. So let's bring Kenji onto the show, but I got to do a little manual labor on my point. Here we go. Let's do this. Let's go. Okay. 9. All right. So through the magic of the internet. Here we go. Let's see if we can get it.
Hello?
Kenji.
Yes.
Hey, it's Robert.
Robert, hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Welcome to the show. You're live. You're on the air. Millions of people are listening to you right now and getting ready to hang on every word. How's it going, my friend?
Very good. We're just preparing to go to Texas and for these two shows in Dallas and Austin. It's so great to reconnect with you, Robert. It's been many years.
I know. I was just kind of informing people a little bit about our history. And the first time I met you, I was thinking about it this week. It was 1998. And
yes.
And it was kind of like the post-rave scene, I guess you could call it the trance scene in San Francisco was starting to take off. And I think you had just come there from Vancouver, right?
I think Boulder and Toronto.
Okay, Toronto and Boulder. Okay, and you were bringing your film, your small film, and your various toolkit, or the toolkit where you have various pieces in there: musician, programmer, filmmaker, and you were just getting your feet on the ground. And now fast forward, here we are in 2013, and your life has changed radically.
Yeah, I can't believe already 15 years ago has passed. But yeah, I mean, I look back at that time in San Francisco as very, very transformative, very pivotal. All the people I met, all the projects I worked on. San Francisco is definitely a transformative place, and definitely sort of outgrew it, I guess, and went off to Tokyo after that. But it has been a wild and amazing ride. I feel very lucky. It's definitely challenging, but it's just a thrill. It's a real honor.
Well, let's give people a little sense of as to who you are and what your background is, and then let's get up to speed and talk about Gaia, which is this multimedia performance that you're the creative director of and is traveling around the world and changing people's lives. Let's go back in time, and you studied film at the University of Toronto, and you're a classically trained violinist, and you're a Gemini, which is why you can wear all these hats. So let's talk a little about your background so people understand who you are, where you came from, and then let's get into Gaia.
Yeah. Well, I was my mom's Japanese, my dad is Welsh. I was born in Malaysia and grew up in America since I was about 3 years old, but had family all around the world in Japan and Hawaii and California and Europe. So there's a lot of traveling just to meet family. And then I started violin when I was 6 years old and was quite serious with classical violin until I went for university. And in my later high school years, I got really into synthesizers, and MIDI was becoming very big back then, and computer music, and that was really the birth of my sort of compositional interests. But at the same time, I was getting tired of playing other people's compositions, meaning in the classical world, so I decided to quit classical and really start making my own music. And I also began to have a great interest in the visual arts and in filmmaking, so I actually ended up going to film school, went and started composing music for films, and at that time in the 90s, it was also sort of this very big, the height of the rave scene, and that was really sort of the start of my kind of spiritual path, and alternate perspective and worldview, and it really had a great impact on my life. And so, but throughout, I picked up my violin again, but then started playing sort of my own style, greatly influenced by Arabic scales, Celtic scales, which is in my blood, and also sort of gypsy sort of stuff, and just became a great lover of world music and Indian music. And I started sort of expressing that in my violin playing, which I started to perform live again with my own compositions of sort of, I guess you could call it electronica or ambient and dance music. When I was in San Francisco and eventually in Tokyo, I was continually making music and performing. That's how I survived in Japan and Tokyo for 4 years, was just playing gigs at huge mountain parties. The Japanese really know how to put on a great event. And at the same time, I always kept my feet in film production and videos. I was making music videos, and I became great friends with an artist named Alex Gray. He's perhaps known for some Beastie Boys artwork or String Cheese Incident artwork. And we decided to do a multimedia project that involved sort of live projected visuals of his artwork animated on screens, and I performed live music that I composed, and Alex was on stage doing live spoken word. And we put on an event in San Francisco for a live audience. And that really basically led to Bella Gaia. So throughout kind of my whole career, it's always been, expressing my passion for the visual arts as well as composition and music and performance. And Bella Gaia is really sort of a culmination of not only these artistic passions of mine, but really looking back to my childhood. I kind of grew up speaking different languages in different countries. I could never really pinpoint, what is my home. I kind of felt home to planet Earth, not specific country. And so Bella Gaia is really a culmination of my life in many ways. I was living in Tokyo at the time, and this young 35-year-old multimillionaire who started a .com in Japan, who was a great fan of mine and of the Alex Gray, the World Spirit DVD that we produced. We had lunch, and he said, "Hey, I'm paying $20 million to go to space, and I want to work with you." It was definitely not your average lunch meeting.
No.
And I could go into the whole Bella Gaia thing, but that was sort of the very sort of start of how Bella Gaia happened.
Now you did some work with. Did you do some work with NASA with one of their flights and playing simultaneously at certain geosynchronous points? Is that right?
Well, that's certainly an idea and dream to do a synchronous live performance with the space station. Mm-hmm. And it's it will happen. I'm definitely talking with people who have done similar types of things, and I'm definitely getting to know more and more people inside NASA. But so far, I work very closely with NASA. They fund our education program that uses Bella Gaia to teach K through 12 kids about earth science and sort of stewardship of our natural resources.
So let's look at Bella Gaia. Let's zoom in on it. It is a pretty big production. I mean, you've got dancers, you've got visuals. Of course, there are musicians, including yourself. There's a lot of work that goes into this. I don't think people understand how much rehearsal time and just sweat, blood, sweat, and tears goes into a big production. Can you talk a little bit about that and your role from going from a person who really is playing violin to visuals on stage to somebody who's actually leading kind of a three-ring circus in real time?
Right.
What's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's really been an organic process, because when I first kind of had the inspiration to make this project, I didn't know what it would look like or how I would get there. I guess in continuation from that meeting in Tokyo with the space tourist, he basically sponsored me to go to Russia to go see the launch of the Soyuz rocket as kind of like a preliminary, let's go check out a rocket launch. And it was basically on that trip to Kazakhstan where I serenaded a rocket at 200 meters away at T-minus 30 seconds. We went back to Moscow and to Mission Control and went to Star City where they train the astronauts. And there is an American NASA part of the training camp, and I met a NASA astronaut, Mike Fink, who had lived on the space station, and it was basically his story to me of how he was so transformed by the first time he looked out the window of the space station and saw our Earth out the window, and had this complete transformation the first time he saw our Earth from space. And so Mike's story is basically the genesis of Bella Gaia. It was the seed of inspiration and got me thinking, how could I bring this transformative experience to those of us who can't go to space? And it basically grew from that organically. Like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do, what it would look like, how I would do it. But slowly meeting people, one of them at the American Museum of Natural History here in New York, and I met a NASA contact at an underground party in Washington, D.C. It's just amazing, sort of synchronous events that have happened that got me here. But it was really an organic process, piecing together this software that I saw at this planetarium in New York that is basically like a super Google Earth. It maps out. It's like a flight simulator for the universe, and you can fly around and orbit around the Earth, and it draws NASA satellite data and maps it on a 3D sphere, but it looks like you're controlling a camera on the space station. I mean, it's like so photorealistic. And I saw this, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I ended up getting a license of this and started creating flight paths and movie files. And at the same time, NASA was starting to feed me all sorts of data visualizations of their content. So I really started putting together content from various different sources, editing it together, composing music to it, and performing it live as well for small audiences and large audiences, but continually sort of taking surveys of the audience, because there was really nothing, I didn't know what the audience would respond to the most, and so it was a very interactive, creative process. And so this solo show slowly grew. I wanted to make it an ensemble of different musicians. I wanted to include a cultural component, because Gaia, Gaia means, it represents the Earth as an interconnected whole, and that's really the core of the message and the journey of Bella Gaia, is an exploration of the relationship between humans and nature throughout history and into the future. And at the core of that is sort of visiting different countries and places and experiencing the amazing beauty of human culture, of art and music and dance from these different places, and how giving examples of how ancient cultures connected with nature and connected with the universe. So this is really sort of played out through music with exotic live instruments, such as a 20-string Japanese koto, which is like a Japanese harp. On stage, we have a tabla player who plays Indian tabla and also voice and percussion. We have an Egyptian nai player. That means it's a flute, an Egyptian flute, but she also plays jazz saxophone for our New York section. We have belly dancers and Indian dancers. It's really the whole world on one stage, and it is sort of threaded by the orbital flight path of the space station.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is heady stuff, Kenji. I mean, at what point are you pinching yourself and just saying, "Wow, I really can't believe, where my life is going at this point in time."
It's definitely, it's a challenge. I mean, yes, I play violin on stage, but that's a very small percentage of what I do. I consider myself a director and an entrepreneur as a business. There's just nothing, it sounds like a cliche, but there is really nothing out there like Gaia, and that's what audiences keep telling me. So there was never really a model for me to look at, either artistic or business-wise, to sort of follow. So it's continually been a process of building the bridge as I cross it. But certainly, I mean, I would have never imagined, like, how do you connect with NASA and work with them and eventually get money from NASA to do, what you love? It is a pretty amazing journey that I've come on, and I continue to be even more excited about the future of where I want to take this project.
Well, there's something about this in terms of your own development, which has to do with success, because you're living your dream, and I think that it's important for people to take note and understand, and look at how certain people are able to accomplish that, because I think that's what we all aspire to at some level, is to live our dream. So what have you been able to glean from your own process here that you could share with people that might be, something they can work with and take away from, not just the experience of Gaia, but your experience in getting to Gaia?
Yeah, well, it's not easy. It's a very challenging life, especially now that I have a 1-year-old daughter. It definitely puts it cuts your time down as well, but it's just such a pleasure as well. But it sounds cheesy, but I just kind of always just followed my heart. I tried the corporate job thing, and it just doesn't fit into my my nature. And as difficult as this project is, I always look at the alternative. Well, I could always make a lot more money and go to a day job, but that just doesn't look very attractive to me, as much as the stability is attractive. But I just, it is perseverance. It is patience. It is learning to look at hints in certain occurrences that happen in your life to say, oh, that is an opportunity that I have to jump on that right now, or that is kind of just a smoke screen and I have to stay away from that. That sort of gut feeling and action and taking advantage of opportunities is, I think, a really important part of it. But it definitely takes time to kind of learn it. I mean, I'm just a student in all of this as well, a student of life. But really, just being aware to that and being sensitive to that, and just really following your heart. And now that I have a daughter, it's like I want to be able to tell my daughter and any future children that I tried everything that I could while I was alive to improve your situation in the future, because we are now at the cusp of, we are so lucky to be alive in this moment, and there are definitely greater challenges in the future for our future generations that are in the cards, and we have to do all that we can, and that is even a greater motivation and driver for me. Yeah, I mean, when I was doing underground parties and just performing music, I always felt like, gosh, I really felt this is great that people are dancing and having a great time, but I would love for people to walk away with something more, something learned, a sort of deeper experience that they can then take into their lives and create action out of it. And so Bella Gaia really sort of fulfills that artistic desire of mine and expression, but also I'm changing people at every show. I mean, the reactions I get from people are just astounding. People in tears, people, I'm changing minds of climate skeptics in one show. This person came up to the other day, said 100 years from now, Bella Gaia will still be performed around the world. I mean, that's the kind of pervasive culture that I dream about creating. And yeah, and this gets sort of back to Moment Utopia, the film that I made, which I think you've seen, about the meaning of ritual and how ritual that connects us to nature is so important for our species and our survival. So that really is sort of my driver. I mean, if you look at all of my work, which you're very familiar with, I can't seem to get away from this theme of planetary evolution and the survival of the human species and how we need to really evolve and step up to the plate for what's happening right now and in the future.
Yeah. So you're going to be in Dallas and Austin, obviously. So it's the Texas leg of the tour, and you've had Bella Gaia on the road for almost 2 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean the ensemble is a fairly recent production. It's about a year old, just a bit over a year old. Before the ensemble was touring, I was touring solo, and that sort of started in 2009. I still do solo shows, but the ensemble is really quite a different experience. It's really quite spectacular. And yes, on the 23rd of February, we will be in Austin, and on the 25th in Dallas at the Winspear Opera House.
Okay. We just had a question from the chat room. Any plans on going to Phoenix, to take the show to Phoenix?
Would love to. We go anywhere that we are invited. It's really a matter of finding a venue that can bring us there, or a sponsor that can bring us there, or an event promoter or organizer that can basically organize the event, the promotion, the marketing and ticket sales, and the technical setup. So it's pretty straightforward, and we would love to bring it to Phoenix. It's a great town. I was just there last summer.
So I guess the answer to that question is, if you want to see Bella Gaia, find somebody who does event promotion and pitch it, right?
Basically, yes. And we, then I can put them in touch with our agent, who can then take it from there.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do, Kenji, is I want to play a track, and then I want to talk about the track a little bit, and then we'll come out of the track and we'll talk a little bit more, and then send you on your way, because I know you've got a lot on your plate today. So the piece that I uploaded was One World from Bella Gaia. What do you want to share with people about this?
This is a track that is kind of in the middle of the show. Involves some African drums and mixed with an Indian sample. And we're it's a very slow zoom from the radiosphere, which is, basically our radio signals travel at the speed of light. And if you were to create a visualization of the sphere of radio waves ever since the first broadcast about 100 years ago, there's this visualization in the show of showing where that sphere of our radio signals have gone and how far they've traveled. So we're sort of starting from out beyond the radio sphere, zooming slowly in towards Earth, and we see all these orbiting satellites around the Earth. They look like little fish orbiting the Earth, and then we go closer and we start to see the land masses and the clouds and the ocean, and then we travel along with the space station and we hear some reflective quotes from astronauts.
Okay. This is Kenji Wiliiams, One World from Gaia.
It follows from the special theory of relativity.
I have a dream. One small step for man. It's a long mission. Democracy and freedom for all.
For those who have seen the Earth from space, and for the hundreds and perhaps thousands more who will, the experience most certainly changes your perspective. Things that we share in our world are far more valuable than those we provide.
As I looked down, I saw a large river meandering slowly along for miles, passing from one country to another without stopping. I also saw huge forests extending across several borders, and I watched the extent of one ocean touch the shores of separate continents. Two words leapt to mind as I looked down on all of this: commonality and interdependence. We are one world.
Well, a little bit of an abrupt ending there, but that was incredible. Really ambient, global fusion, and I'm sure in the context of the performance, it's really just a seamless sort of interlude and piece that fits right in with everything else that you're doing. Good stuff, Kenji.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it's a live recording. But no, I definitely, any listeners out there who are in the Dallas and Austin area, please come see the show. Would love to meet you. And if you're not in the area, then please sign up on our newsletter at bellagaia.com. And we would love an invitation. We really want to bring this out to as many people as possible around the world. And it is just such a powerful and beautiful and inspiring experience for any human on planet Earth.
So there we go. Okay, so they can find you at, is it bellagaia.org? Is that right?
.com, BELLAGAIA.com.
And there's a really incredible video that's on the website, and then people have from already who are in the chat room and who knew that you were going to be a guest have downloaded the video, and they're blown away by it. So you can find out more about Bella Gaia from a visual perspective on the site. And Kenji is also a recording artist, and you can find his recordings like World Spirit, some of his older pieces like ABA Structure on places like eMusic and iTunes and all kinds of other digital download stores. So there's a whole other side to you as well, and that is connected to Bella Gaia that people can explore and find out more about. Well, Kenji, thank you for hanging out, spending some time, and I know you're super busy, and I hope I can see you when you get down here in Austin.
Fantastic. I forgot to mention also a show in New York City at NYU on March 31st. And that's going to be a specialized, customized show with some Buddhist monks and a Japanese orchestra. So that's another whole story. But yeah, I really appreciate reconnecting with you, Robert. It's so great, and I really look forward to seeing you. And then all of you guys listening, thank you so much.
Kenji Wiliiams, he's living the dream. Go see Bella Gaia. Thanks, Kenji. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. So how cool is that? We've got somebody who is not only creating visionary content, but has found a way to bring it to the masses. And whether or not you buy the global warming story, which is one of the things that is always debatable, especially amongst people that follow my show and kind of get into the content a little bit. I think what we can agree upon about the Earth is that it's got some limitations. It is not this infinite expanse of resources that will continually give to us without some kind of repercussion. And if it's not global warming that you get behind, certainly there are a number of other pretty big ticket items that we can look at. And one of them obviously is fracking and absolutely spoiling and polluting the groundwaters of the United States and other nations as well. And if it's not fracking, there's at least 3 or 4 other environmentally related pieces that we should all be very concerned about. In my book, a lot of them are not grabbing the headlines the way, say, global warming, which is really at the forefront of a lot of debate, both on climate skeptics and non-climate skeptics. Of course, that's where the debate would be. But things like EMF and ELF smog, and how the EMF and ELF towers are impacting our thoughts, impacting our internal organs, impacting our DNA, and certainly from a much darker perspective, things like HAARP and other related technology that is positioned all around the planet. So the Earth and the environment is certainly an issue. And if Bella Gaia can move you in your own way to understand that, then please check it out. And I know that Kenji's music is top notch, and I can't wait to see what he's put together. All right, it is 12:40 here in Austin. We got 20 minutes left in the Monday mashup, and it was an interesting weekend on a number of levels. I think it seems to me like the weekends are now these zones of repose, and everything happens really in the blitzkrieg of the Monday through Friday news cycle. And last week was a news mashup of incredible magnitude, from the passing of the Pope to the Dorner experience to the comets. I mean, again, this is where we started with today's show. It was an intense week, and it feels to me like the weeks are going to continue to get even more intense as we escalate towards the square the cardinal square between Uranus and Pluto in May. And both of those planets are going to be at 11 degrees, which equals the number 22. And it should be a fairly intense time. That's my take on it. Every time we've had these squares go off, not only have the squares in real time been challenging, but in the days and the weeks after the squares, we've had some really fractious moments in time. So keep your eye on that May date. This is the end of May, when both Uranus and Pluto are squaring off at 11 degrees apiece. We had two passings just recently. Last night it was reported that Mindy McCready, at the age of 37, passed away. This is a tragic story of, I wouldn't say it's epic, but it is certainly a tragic story. She is a country and western singer who had a hit record, sold 2 million records. And that was early in her career. And after that, her life became a rapidly declining downward spiral. And she happens to be the 5th person from Celebrity Rehab that has died, and the 3rd person from one show that has died. Those numbers are staggering. And if you don't know what Celebrity Rehab is, it's a show that is hosted by Dr. Drew Pinsky. And people should do a little research on Dr. Drew Pinsky so they can understand who he is, where he comes from, and what some of his connections are. Now, if I were an objective outsider, which I theoretically am, I would say that Dr. Drew's track record of helping people is pretty abysmal. If you've got 5 people that have been on your show and they've died, and 3 of them from the same show, I would look pretty seriously at my methodology. Unless, of course, the idea here is something very different and much more nefarious than just a celebrity psychiatrist failing over and over again. I'll let you decide on that for yourself. But the background with Mindy McCready is that this is someone who has suffered a fair amount of abuse and trauma at some point in their lives. And if you have followed any of Dave McGowan's work or Kathy O'Brien's work, especially Kathy O'Brien, as she gets into the realm of country and western music, which is essentially how she got programmed herself. Well, she got programmed from a much earlier age, but her handler was a country and western stand-up comedian and clown. And she was married to him, but only really for the maintenance of her programming. But she talks about in her book, Transformation of America, how the altering of subpersonalities and these kind of robotic country and western Stepford wife singers are prevalent in that world. And she, in fact, she even mentions the Mandrell sisters as another example of, her version of Mindy McCready. And what's really interesting is that one of the other people that she mentions in her really traumatic and intense book, Transformation of America, is Lee Greenwood. And Lee Greenwood, of course, is the author of God Bless the USA. He's the singer-songwriter of that piece of music, which was very popular in the post-9/11 atmosphere in America. And there's a video, you can find it online. I believe it is from Colorado to the Colorado, Arizona. It's Lee Greenwood on stage singing for Sarah Palin, who at that time was on the campaign tour with John McCain. And this video is kind of amazing. Now here's Lee Greenwood, who's indicted in the Kathy O'Brien work as being a not necessarily a handler, but somebody who knew the access codes. He's on stage. He's singing God Bless the USA. Now there's Sarah Palin. She's on stage. And then there's Linda Rothschild, who's also on stage. And what's interesting is that Sarah Palin is off to the side. with her daughter, Bristol, and the baby. Bristol's holding the baby. And then there's Lee Greenwood, and then right next to Greenwood is Linda Rothschild. And during the singing of God Bless the USA, Sarah Palin flashes 2 Baphomets. It's amazing. But it's kind of must-watch video. So in a weird way, if you connect the dots, Lee Greenwood in that moment is really showing a lot more than telling, but it's a pretty fair amount of show. Mindy McCready claims that she was Roger Clemens' lover at the age of 15. And one of the things that Kathy O'Brien actually talks about also in the book is the connection between country and western music and baseball. And she mentions 2 people that are connected to baseball. One is Nolan Ryan in her book, who is now the owner of the Texas Rangers, and the other is Tommy Lasorda. And the description of Lasorda is actually pretty vulgar. And she claims that both of them, well, particularly Lasorda, knew how to access these codes. And in fact, Lasorda did so with Kathy O'Brien. So it's not out of the question that there would be a connection between Roger Clemens and Mindy McCready, especially at a young age. She talked about it. Clemens denied it. But there you go. Clemens is, of course, from the state of Texas. Right now, he is a special assistant to the Houston Astros. And the Houston Astros are owned by one James Crane, and James Crane is, or at least this weekend, was playing golf in Florida with one Barack Hussein Obama. So it's a very strange and interconnected and weirdly webbed world that we live in. And Mindy McCready, tragically gone, leaving 2 children behind, one as young as 6 months. And another passing, Dr. Jerry Buss, who was the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, finally moved on from this world, age 80. That guy lived a very full life. Trust me on that. He leaves behind 2 children, Jenny and Jim. And Jim is now, Jim Jr. is now the man, the head honcho of the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm sure that there are a number of people who are Lakers fans who are not that thrilled about that. Jenny, of course, the squeeze of Phil Jackson, the Zen master, former coach of the Lakers. So here we are. It's Monday. We have a blank slate ahead of us. We have a fresh week of fill in the blank, and it's up to you to do it in a positive way. So stay inspired. And one of the reasons why I brought Kenji onto the show was that I thought he would be an inspirational person to share his story and share what he's doing with Bella Gaia. Because I think we all need to have a dream, and we all need to be able to continue to follow our dream, whatever that dream is, whether it's creating music and loving the earth and trying to find a connection between the earth and the sky and sharing that with people, or whether it's with creating something as magical as orgone, which is a very simple thing to do but can be very helpful and beneficial. And of course, that is a cue for somebody who listens to the show. Randy, happy birthday. We know it's your birthday today. If you're in the chat room, if you haven't already done so, wish Randy a happy birthday. Randy does make orgone. That's the connection between orgone and the birthday and Randy. So there we go. Happy birthday to you. And hope you continue to do what you love. And that includes everybody else who listens to the show. Do what you love. What else is there? Am I right? I mean, theoretically, if the whole thing is going to go up in a giant cloud of meteor smoke, you may as well just do what you love anyway and roll the dice and see where it takes you. And don't look back. My grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, used to say, when there was a hay truck passing by, make a wish and don't look back. And as a kid, I always thought it was, make a wish and don't look behind you in the car, because we'd see these things in the car. And as soon as I would say that, of course I'd want to look back. I'd have to look back. And of course, I'd try to break the spell. But really what she meant was, don't look back in your life. Just make the wish and know that in faith it will be granted on some level. Now, I'm sure it's magical thinking, but I'm just sharing some folk wisdom from my great-great-grandmother from the Dust Belt of Arkansas. All right, Wednesday, I'll be back with navigating the astrological matrix, and Friday, TBA. We'll see who we can get on here. Still working on that mystery guest, which would be more timely than ever, I think. But until then, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I am going to play one more piece from Bella Gaia. This is Biosphere Pulse. And it's 5 minutes and 18 seconds of inspired music. And we'll play this, and we'll see you on Wednesday. All right, this is Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Monday Mashup. Have a great Monday.
out of a dust storm over the Sahara and caught up by air currents, reached the Philippines and settled there with rain, I understood that we are all sailing in the same boat.